Hey, what's up guys, and welcome back to IGCSE Success, your one-stop shop for everything IGCSE English. Two things. Can we just ignore the aircon remote? And can we also ignore the very unsightly eye infection, which I still have almost 2 weeks later? If you're interested, I thought it was a sty. I was told it was a sty, and then I later found out it was something completely different, which I've never heard of before, and I've forgotten the name of it. It begins with C. Chalazion? Maybe. Anyway, I wanted to hop on, show my face very briefly. I've been working really hard for the past 2 hours. It took me about an hour to do all of the editing to put this video together. So before I start the video, this isn't going to be a lesson. It's basically me typing up a model response for this paper. I will put a screen grab somewhere. This video might not be for everyone. It is me typing out a model response live, so you hear all of the hiccups, all of the hurdles that I have to try and overcome. It's hard. I always say, like, I really empathize with you guys doing anything under time conditions, particularly creative prose. So it is a long video. I think it's almost an hour, but I write each paragraph in live time, and after each paragraph I provide commentary to give you a sort of insight into the vocabulary choices I've used, sentence structure, any kind of stylistic choices that I've employed. So I've used what I like to call the photograph method. This is the method that I try and get my students to use if they opt to do the descriptive writing option. So each descriptive piece consists of 4 paragraphs essentially. So the first paragraph is the wide angle shot, the second paragraph is the zoom in shot, third paragraph is the zoom in shot, and the last paragraph is the zoom out shot, often using a circular structure. And don't worry, I am going to be doing a lesson specifically on the photograph method. I think I'm going to use this descriptive piece in that video. I will try to get that video sorted ASAP. That might be a little bit more palatable for some of you rather than watching me type up a live response. Some of you might enjoy it, who knows? Anyway, I'm going to stop waffling. Let's watch me type a descriptive piece titled The Family, or My Family, The Family. Okay, so the prompt is the family. I already have a clear direction in mind, and I'm going for something somewhat a Christmas Carol inspired with this descriptive writing piece. And of course, with any prompt, it's really crucial to think outside the box and to use every tool in your writer's toolbox to really bring your images to life. Now, I'll be writing a full descriptive piece using the photograph method as explained earlier. I'm going to lay out a quick plan, and I highly recommend you do the same. You, of course, need to have a clear sense of direction before you begin. You need to know what each paragraph is going to focus on and what effect you intend to achieve. So I would set out your plan in exactly the same way that you are seeing on your screens now. So my first paragraph, of course, is going to be the wide angle shot. So I'm going to try describing things from afar, and I'm going to be focusing on the house that I will be describing in my first zoom in paragraph. So in terms of what I'm going to be focusing on, I guess I'm going to be focusing on how cozy it is. I'm going to try to depict it as a festive home filled with, let's put, with light and warmth. And the effect I'm going to try and achieve is, let's put, an image of unity and joy. Now, for my first zoom in paragraph, I am going to be sort of peering. I'm going to be sort of an observer, peeping's probably the wrong word, peering into the window. So I'm going to be describing this very lively, loving family dynamic during Christmas evening. And in terms of the effect, I'm going to try and highlight the warmth and closeness of the family. I think that's fine. Now, zoom in 2 is where you don't have to do this, but I suggest that you do have an element of contrast. I'm going to depict a distant or disconnected family. Okay, so in terms of their interactions, maybe their physicality, their relationships, they are going to be in stark contrast with those depicted in the zoom in 1 paragraph. So let's put a distant, disconnected. By the way, I do apologise if you find the typing noise terribly annoying, but I was going to handwrite this, but I'm a lefty and my handwriting is awful, by the way. And I really want to signal let's put the emotional distance and tension. There we go. Now, for my last paragraph, my zoom in paragraph, where I recommend you kind of have this circular structure. So maybe you return to the first wide angle shot, but focus on something slightly different. I'm going to focus on, let's put people on the streets. Let's put some together, others alone. And I guess the intended effect is that I really want it to mirror the theme of connection and disconnection in society. Disconnection in society, just like A Christmas Carol. If you've not read Dickens' A Christmas Carol, I strongly recommend you do. If you don't want to read it, watch the animated version. I like the Jim Carrey one. There's lots of good ones. So before I start writing my descriptive piece, I really want to stress that Cambridge really values descriptive writing that is more than just a static image, so a still image. They really appreciate when a scene feels dynamic, when there's movement. And that could be, I don't know, the flickering of a light or the sound of laughter. And these things really give life to a description. Contrast, as mentioned, is really, really key here too. You don't want your descriptive piece to be one note. It really adds layers and depth to your descriptive writing. The differences between warmth and cold, closeness and distance, these really keep the reader engaged. It's really not just about painting a picture or a static image. It's about showing the, I guess, shifts and tensions that make the scene feel real, alive, credible. And that's what Cambridge is really after, particularly if you are after those top grades for paper 2 composition. So let's begin typing this descriptive piece up. So, look, I've forgotten already. Cozy, festive home filled with light and warmth, an image of unity and joy. So I'm doing a wide angle shot, so I'm describing the family's home from afar. So let's start with a striking simile, shall we? Right, can I type? Okay. So let's put the house stood like a glowing beacon against the winter night. Let's do something about the light. It's golden lights spilling through the frosted windows and onto the snow-covered floor. No, let's put laden ground, so creating a sense of abundance there. Lots of snow. Let's put something about the smoke. A soft haze of smoke curled from a soft haze of smoke curled from the chimney. What happens next? Okay. Dissolving into the starlit sky. Let's develop this imagery a little bit. Whilst warm Oh, jeez. Do you know what word I really struggle to spell, guys? Silhouettes. I shouldn't be saying that as an English teacher. English BA, what English BA? Um, let's say, so silhouettes, what verb am I looking for? Flittered across the window panes, their movements lively and unguarded. Does that make sense? Lively and unguarded. Unguarded. I'm going with that. So, okay, I want to create a sense of this observer being at a distance. So, let's put even from a distance, the sounds of laughter, and let's put muffled conversation again to create a sense that this observer is at a distance and can't quite hear everything that's going on, carried through the crisp air. Let's put a stark contrast to the stillness. So a bit of juxtaposition there. Even though we are describing things from afar, I'm going to describe the Christmas tree, which I will describe, I think, in more detail in both paragraphs, actually. So let's put the towering Christmas tree. Adorned is a good word to use. Adorned with, let's put, glimmers of silver and gold was just visible through the glass. Let's put, do I need a semicolon? No, its peak crowned with a soft, steady glow. Let me just read that back to make sure it makes sense. The towering Christmas tree, adorned with glimmers of silver and gold, was just visible through the glass, its peak crowned with a soft, steady glow. Okay, I'm happy with that. Let's put, it was a symbol of, it was a symbol of, no. It was a portrait of warmth. Triplets. Come on, Ash. Warmth, joy, and togetherness. Framed. Let's put. Do I need a comma there? Yes, framed by the hush of a winter's evening. Okay, I think I have my. It was. Oh, there we go. Right, guys, I think I have my first paragraph, my wide angle shot. Let's just read it back to make sure it makes sense. Sometimes I get carried away with the imagery. The house stood like a glowing beacon against the winter night, its golden light spilling through the frosted windows and onto the snow-laden ground. A soft haze of smoke curled from the chimney, dissolving into the starlit sky, whilst warm silhouettes flitted across the window panes, their movements lively and unguarded. Even from a distance, the sounds of laughter and muffled conversation carried through the crisp air, a stark contrast to the stillness outside. The towering Christmas tree, adorned with glimmers of silver and gold, was just visible through the glass, its peak crowned with a soft, steady glow. It was a portrait of warmth, joy, and togetherness, framed by the hush of a winter's evening. Yes, I think I'm happy with that. Okay, let me try and break this down and explain to you why I've used some of the vocab and the techniques and the effect that I'm trying to achieve. So I've started with that striking simile The house stood like a glowing beacon against the winter night. Now, the word beacon, of course, suggests something that attracts attention and gives off warmth. And this I've tried to contrast with the cold of the winter night. And hopefully it kind of gives the reader a sense of safety and light in the midst of darkness, I guess. Then I've used golden light spilling through the frosted windows, so some lovely imagery there. We've got that adjective golden, which evokes warmth and luxury, and we've got that verb spilling, which creates a sense of abundance, like the light is overflowing and eager to share its warmth. Then I've used that word frosted, and of course there are connotations with Christmas here, but it contrasts with the previous image, reminding us of the cold outside, and this creates a visual and sort of sensory juxtaposition. What have I done next? So I've described the soft haze of smoke curling from the chimney. I've used the adjective soft, and this, I guess, suggests gentleness, and haze creates an image of something warm and comforting. So we've got that verb curling, which gives the smoke movement, almost like it's, I guess, dancing upward. And this adds a sense of life to the scene. Moving on, I really wanted to emphasize the sound of the house, so using auditory imagery. We've got the laughter and the muffled conversation. And as mentioned, this is auditory imagery. And muffled suggests that the sounds are contained within the house, keeping the warmth inside, but I guess still hinting at its presence beyond the walls. And this adds a real sense of intimacy. As for the Christmas tree, I don't know if it's a bit cliche using the adjective towering, but I've used it anyway, of course, to describe its size. And this conveys, I guess, its strength and prominence in the room. It's not just a decoration, it's a symbol of the family's unity and their togetherness. Then we have what was the word I used? The word steady, that adjective steady, to describe the glow of the star. And this gives a feeling of stability and constancy, whilst that adjective otherworldly, which, by the way, guys, is one of my favorite adjectives. If you've watched enough of my videos, I try and shoehorn in that word a lot. And this suggests something magical beyond the ordinary, almost as if the family's happiness is radiant and shines beyond the physical space of the room. And hopefully you can see that all of these choices, whether it's the warmth of the light, the movement of the smoke, or the size or the glow of the tree, these are all meant to work together to create an atmosphere of comfort, joy, and connection. And I guess to emphasize the togetherness of the family and the warmth that they share. Hopefully I've achieved my intended effect. Do let me know in the comments. Now, my next paragraph is going to be the first zoom in, and it's going to be an extension of the first one, except we are going to zoom in through the window and describe the family dynamic. Let me just remind myself of the plan. So, lively, loving family dynamic, highlight the warmth and closeness. Okay, so it's all about the togetherness and this sort of unwavering love that they have for each other. And this, of course, is heightened, as it always is during Christmas time. Transition phrase. Let's start with, through the frosted glass, I watched them. I know I'm going to get a question or query about using the first person pronoun I. It's a descriptive piece. You can't use the first person pronoun I. You can, but I would say use it sparingly, because invariably lots of descriptive pieces that do use I repeatedly throughout, it sort of veers off into narrative territory. So I would use it sparingly. So through the frosted glass, I watched them. Let's put a family wrapped in warmth and joy. A bit of personification there. Let's describe the children first. So 3 children Darted, no, darted is a bit too chaotic. Wove through the living room, their laughter ringing like sleigh bells. Oh, I don't know if I like that. Is that a bit too cliche? Their laughter ringing like sleigh bells. Their laughter... No, guys, I absolutely hate that. Their laughter utterly infectious. Their laughter utterly infectious. No, I'm not finished with that sentence just yet. Let's put... Oh, my mind. I want to write about... Okay. 3 children wove through the living room, their laughter utterly infectious as... Okay. Shreds of wrapping paper lay strewn across the polished marble. Oh no. What's it called? What's that nice wooden flooring called, guys? Parquet. My family has parquet wooden flooring. It's lovely. Parquet floor, glowing softly in the flickering candlelight. Right. The fire crackled in the hearth, sending golden embers. Oh my goodness. Golden embers swirling up the chimney. I like that image. Thank you very much. Then let's put whilst shadows stretched and swayed across the walls. Let me just double check that makes sense. The polished parquet, across the polished parquet, oh gosh, floor, glowing softly in the flickering candlelight, the fire crackled in the hearth, sending golden embers swirling up the chimney, whilst shadows stretched and swayed across the wall. So I'm happy about that. I want to shift the focus to Dad. Now, Dad is going to be in his, I don't know, in his reclined chair. The father, let's put grinned, his face alight with I've used that word, unwavering happiness. I hope that makes sense. So unwavering happiness, let's shift it to mother, whilst the mother with her, let's describe her hair, auburn curls cascading over her shoulders, darted after the children, her laughter bright and infection. Now I've used that already. Unrestrained. Okay, let's make sure that makes sense. So the fire crackled in the hearth, sending golden embers swirling up the chimney, while shadows stretched and swayed across the walls. In his reclined chair, the father grinned, his face alight with unwavering happiness, whilst the mother, with her auburn curls cascading over her shoulders, darted after the children, her laughter bright and unrestrained. Why is it saying that's wrong? Okay, now I want to describe the Christmas tree, the majestic, is that too much? Right, I'm going to come back to that. The Christmas tree, I'm not going to use, I can't use towering again. Reach towards the ceiling, its ornaments, they're catching the light like scattered jewels. I don't know if that's a bit too much, let me know. Whilst the star at its peak, let's put gleamed with a steady, let's use it again, otherworldly glow. The scene before me was one of pure, unfiltered joy, so full, so complete, that it seemed to hum with life. Unfiltered joy. Right, my brain is really not braining. Adjective to describe the Christmas tree. Right, do you know what, guys? I'm just going to put majestic. I know that's a bit cliche, but the majestic Christmas tree reached towards the ceiling, its ornaments catching the light like scattered jewels, whilst the star at its peak gleamed with a steady, otherworldly glow. The scene before me was one of pure, unfiltered joy, so full, so complete that it seemed to hum with life. Guys, I think I've finished my first zoom in paragraph. I'm going to give myself a pat on the back. Hopefully you can hear that. So with my first zoom in paragraph, I've tried to focus on creating a rich and immersive atmosphere, one that captures, I guess, the warmth, movement and joy of this particular family. And as mentioned before, Cambridge does value descriptive pieces that feel alive and are not just static snapshots. So I'm making sure there's a strong sense of action and fluidity throughout. So I've started with through the frosted glass I watched them. So what I'm trying to do here is to establish, I guess, a sense of perspective, positioning the narrator as an outsider looking in, which is a really useful technique, particularly if you're zooming into different settings. That sense of distance is important because it hints at contrast and perhaps something deeper beneath the surface, particularly when we move on to our second zoom in paragraph, contrast, which is going to focus on a completely different family. So next I've used a family wrapped in warmth and joy. We've got this verb wrapped, which of course links to Christmas, but also suggests closeness, security and affection. It's very, very subtle, but these are the kind of things that Cambridge rewards marks for. And it reinforces, I guess, the warmth of the scene. Now, instead of just saying the children were happy, I make their laughter utterly infectious. And I've employed this to add energy, and it suggests that their joy spreads to those around them. Then let's have a look. I bring in the sensory detail with shreds of wrapping paper lay strewn across the polished parquet floor, glowing softly in the flickering candlelight. Now there's a mix of movement strewn across and light imagery glowing softly, flickering candlelight, and these make the scene feel dynamic and visually rich. The fire also becomes another moving element, so sending golden embers swirling up the chimney. Notice how I have avoided passivity. Instead of saying they were embers, I make them swirl, reinforcing the scene's warmth and movement. And I've tried to keep that energy going with shadows stretched and swayed across the walls. Remember, shadows aren't static, they dance. And this very much mirrors the liveliness of the family. Apologies guys if you can hear the aircon going now. It's very hot. I've tried to do this video without aircon, but I'm struggling here. When I've described the parents, I've made really deliberate choices. So the father grinned, his face alight with unwavering happiness. Now I've used the phrase unwavering happiness to suggest a deep, enduring joy rather than this sort of fleeting moment. The mother's movements also darted after the children. Her laughter, bright and unrestrained, makes her feel just as playful and free as them. So there's a real sense of togetherness. This family's bond is completely boundless. And of course I had to describe the Christmas tree, guys. So rather than saying towering again, I went with the adjective majestic to, I guess, reinforce its grand presence. I have avoided cliche words like twinkling, although I was thinking about using the verb twinkling. And instead I just focused on the ornament. So the fact that the light catches the light like scattered jewels, although I think that's a little bit cliche, but whatever. Hopefully this makes the glow feel more precious and delicate. I've also described the star gleaming with a steady, otherworldly glow, and I've tried to use symbolism here. So there's this slightly mystical phrasing, if you want to call it that, making it, I guess, symbolic and hinting at something beyond just a decoration. This is really symbolic of the family's close-knit relationship. And I've ended with a very powerful statement. The scene before me was one of pure, unfiltered joy, so full, so complete, that it seemed to hum with life. Now, I've used that phrase, hum with life, to I guess, make the joy feel tangible, as if the whole room is just bursting or vibrating with warmth and energy. And this final touch reinforces the contrast I'm setting up, because if this is pure unfiltered joy, what comes next might not be. There's a little spoiler. Now I'm going to use a very short, simple sentence to create a sense of movement, as if the narrator is moving on to the next house. So let's just put it was time to move on. And of course this is a structural choice, and Cambridge appreciates these very subtle choices. So let's go with beyond the next frost-laced window, the scene was starkly different. I appreciate that is a quote-unquote telling sentence, guys. I'm gonna develop it, okay? Let's put the same golden light. The same golden light poured from the lamps, but it did little to chase away the heavy stillness in the air. The same golden light poured from the lamps, but it did little to chase away the heavy stillness in the air. So there's a suggestion that the focus of this paragraph, the family that we are going to be presented with, is going to be a very, very different dynamic. So let's start with a boy, the son. A boy sat slumped. Notice my diction there. I've used that verb slumped. So a boy sat slumped at the far end of the sofa, absently. He's going to be scrolling through his phone, of course. Absently scrolling through his phone. His face was bathed in the glow of the... No. Perfect opportunity there for an adjective to pre-modify glow. So the adjective called was bathed in the cold glow of the screen. So straight away the atmosphere is clearly pretty somber if we're comparing it to the previous paragraph, which is full of love, which is full of life, which is full of laughter. Let's prepositional phrase. So across from him, a woman sipped from a mug. Notice as well how I've decided to write boy, woman, rather than mother and son. See, I think about these things. Again, it's creating a sense of distance. It's creating a coldness to the family dynamic. So across from him, a woman sipped from a mug. Her gaze distant, lost in thoughts that no one asked about. At the dining table, a man, of course the father, flipped through the pages of a newspaper, colon. If you've not checked out, I did a video recently on sophisticated punctuation, where I looked at dashes, semicolons, and colons. I do recommend that you check that video out. A little bit of promo there. Let's put his jaw was tight. How can I describe his, typo there. More, doesn't want to be there, so his presence more, he feels obligated, more obligation than choice. I will read that back to myself in a minute to make sure it makes sense. Now let's describe the Christmas tree and aim for contrast. The Christmas tree stood solemnly, yes, a bit of sibilance there, stood solemnly in the corner, its decorations, well, they're certainly not glowing and they're certainly not in abundance, so its decorations sparse, its lights blinking. I was going to use the word spasmodically. Those of you who have done that first language English, paper 1, Sammy's Hostel, spasmodically is a word that's used in that texty, and all my students use it now. Its lights blinking, let's put mechanically, as if forced into happiness, forced into festivity. Okay. There were no remnants of torn wrapping paper. So notice how I'm trying to focus on the same things. So obviously you've got the family dynamic, the Christmas tree, the wrapping paper, but the way that I'm describing or showing these things starkly different, okay? So there were no remnants of torn wrapping paper, no echoes of laughter, no sign that the day was different from any. This makes me sad. Let's focus on the silence a bit more. So the silence between them was not peaceful, semicolon. It was what? It was heavy, an unspoken understanding that whatever had once bound them together had long since begun to unravel. No, begun to fray. What's wrong with this? Echoes of laughter. Oh no, not bounced. I want the word bound. Okay. Right, I hope that makes sense. The Christmas tree stood solemnly in the corner. By the way, I will read this in its entirety once I finished it. Its decorations sparse, its lights blinking mechanically as if forced into festivity. There were no remnants of torn wrapping paper, no echoes of laughter, no sign that the day was different from any other. The silence between them was not peaceful. It was heavy, an unspoken understanding that whatever had once bound them together had long since begun to fray. So that is my second zoom in paragraph. Hopefully you can see the stark contrast. I think I'm happy with that. So a bit of commentary, guys, to explain some of my images and my language choices. Of course, I've shifted the focus to contrast here. And as mentioned several times already, something that Cambridge really values. Descriptive writing, again, it shouldn't just be one beautiful static image. It needs movement, juxtaposition, and deeper meaning. And that's exactly what I'm building here. So I've opened with beyond the next frost-laced window. The scene was starkly different. So right away, I'm singling a shift, albeit in a very sort of telling type way. Now, the frost-laced window maintains the winter setting, but the phrase starkly different obviously makes it clear that this is a tonal shift from the warmth of the previous paragraph. So it's very clear for whoever is going to have the pleasure of marking your piece. So the golden light here remains linking the two scenes, but here it does little to chase away the heavy stillness in the air. So I'm using contrast deliberately. What was once warm and inviting now feels ineffective, unable to, I guess, break through the cold atmosphere. Then I've introduced the boy. I've not given him a name. I've not called him son. Okay. He is slumped at the far end of the sofa, absently scrolling through his phone. I'm sure we're all guilty of that after opening our presents. Now, that verb slumped immediately conveys apathy, and absently scrolling suggests disconnection, not just from the, I guess, people in the room, his family, but from the movement itself. Now, his face is bathed in the cold glow of the screen, and again a sharp contrast to the golden candlelight in the first scene. Here light isn't warm or welcoming, it's isolating. Okay, so contrast throughout the whole piece, really. The next thing I've described is the woman or the mother. So she is sipping from a mug. Her gaze is distant. She's lost in thoughts that no one asks about. This, of course, adds emotional depth. Her isolation isn't just physical, but emotional. The phrase thoughts that no one asks about subtly suggests a lack of communication, reinforcing this theme of detachment, I guess. Then the man or the father at the dining table, he is flipping through the pages of a newspaper. Notice how I've described his jaw as being tight. His presence is an obligation rather than choice. It'd rather be anywhere else, which is quite sad, really. So instead of simply saying he was reading, I focus on his tight jaw, hinting at the tension. And of course, the phrase more obligation than choice suggests he feels stuck here rather than truly present. So again, reinforcing that idea of sort of detachment. Now, if you remember what I said before, I've tried to focus on the same things, but obviously using contrast. So I have depicted the Christmas tree again in this particular family household, although in a very, very different manner. So in the first zoom in paragraph, it's described as being sort of majestic and glowing. It is now standing solemnly in the corner, its decoration sparse, its lights blinking mechanically as if forced into festivity. So some lovely sort of personification there through the adverb solemnly, making it seem as though it's completely lifeless. Doesn't really sort of serve the purpose that it's supposed to. You know, it's supposed to bring families together and to create this sort of sense of unity and togetherness, and you put all your troubles to one side, even if it's just for one day, right? Blinking mechanically sort of removes any warmth, making the light feel, I guess, robotic, devoid of joy. And then I've used that phrase as if forced into festivity. And this is really key here, as it mirrors the forced nature of the family's presence and highlights their emotional disconnect. Finally, I have stripped any sort of sign of celebration. There was no remnants of torn wrapping paper, no echoes of laughter, no sign that the day was different from any other. And this contrast is stark. Whilst the first family radiated warmth and movement, this one exists in a joyless, and I've ended with the silence between them was not peaceful, it was heavy, an unspoken understanding that whatever had once bound them together had long since begun to fray. So silence can be comforting, but here it's, I guess, oppressive. And that phrase, unspoken understanding, hints at emotional wounds, I guess, too deep to voice, and begun to fray evokes something unraveling, a relationship, I guess, quietly falling apart. So guys, we've got one more paragraph to do, which is my final wide angle shot or zoom out shot. Let me just... So we've done the zoom in to people on the street, some together, others alone. I need to get across the theme of connection, disconnection in society. So I'm going to be describing people going about their sort of business, some close, some not. I'm definitely going to start with, it was time to move on. So I'm going to repeat that sentence structure. So let's start with outside the world moved on. I'm going to try do this quite quickly because I appreciate with the commentary, and it's going to be quite a lengthy video. Outside the world moved on, indifferent to the lives unfolding behind closed doors. And that's really the sort of crux of this descriptive piece, isn't it? We don't always know what happens behind closed doors, and you know, Christmas time is not always a happy time for many families, unfortunately. People walked the streets, some alone, others in pairs or groups, their footsteps creating a rhythmic pulse against the quiet night. Okay, happy with that. Families bundled in scarves and coats drifted past Christmas window displays, their laughter and conversation rising above the murmur of the city. In contrast, some walked in silence, shoulders. So even in this paragraph, I'm trying to contrast different groups of people, guys. Eyes cast downward. Eyes cast downward, unaware of the joy in the shops or the lights shining above. The Christmas lights seemed to illuminate more than just the street. They cast fleeting glimpses of warmth and togetherness in windows, but also revealed gaps in others. I don't know if I like this, guys. Gaps in others' lives where families... I don't know if there's enough showing in this paragraph. Also revealed gaps in others' lives where families sat apart, disconnected. No, okay, this works. Disconnected by invisible walls. So a little metaphor there. The streets told a story of families in all their forms. Those bound by love and those separated by distance, but all in their own way, searching. What are they searching for? Searching for connection in a world that was often too busy to offer it. Searching for connection. Gosh. Right. Oh, I think I've finished it. Right, let me have a read of that to myself. Let's do a little language commentary and then I'll read the whole thing. My brain is about to explode. I empathise with you guys. Right, before I read the whole thing, let's try and unpick this a little bit. So, of course, I've zoomed out, and this really is crucial for descriptive writing. It's not just about locking into a single moment, but expanding, I guess, outwards and showing contrast, perspective, and movement. So I have opened with outside the world moved on, indifferent to the lives unfolding behind closed doors. Now, this immediately, I guess, sets up a contrast between the personal struggles happening inside and I guess the wider world that continues without pause. Now, I've used that adjective indifferent to reinforce the idea that life doesn't stop for, I guess, individual pain. Then I have introduced movement. So people walked the streets, some alone, others in pairs or groups, their footsteps creating a rhythmic pulse against a quiet night. Obviously, auditory imagery there. So notice how this contrasts with the previous scene of stillness inside the home. So the phrase rhythmic pulse gives life to the city, making it feel somewhat dynamic and ever moving. Then I've zoomed in on some details, such as families bundled in scarves and coats drifted past Christmas windows displays, their laughter and conversation rising above the murmur of the city. So this line, I guess, paints a warm, lively image. The presence of scarves and coats adds texture, whilst the laughter rising above the murmur creates a sense of warmth and festivity, which of course contrasts with the rather somber atmosphere in the second household. Now, I don't just show one side of the story. Contrast is really key here. I've put in contrast, some walked in silence, shoulders hunched, eyes cast downwards, unaware of the joy in the shops or the lights shining above. Bah humbug, anyone. This, I think, breaks the illusion of universal joy. And the phrase shoulders hunched, hello Scrooge, conveys weight, physical or I guess emotional. And unaware of the joy suggests that the celebration is not accessible to everyone, I guess. Then I've extended this metaphor further. So the Christmas lights seem to illuminate more than just the street. They cast fleeting glimpses of warmth and togetherness in windows, but also revealed gaps in others' lives. So here I've used light as a, I guess, symbol, both exposing the warmth and highlighting absence. And that adjective fleeting suggests that these moments of joy are very much temporary or out of reach for some. And the final lines bring the entire piece together, hopefully. So I've written the streets told a story of families in all of their forms, those bound by love, such as the family in the first zoom in paragraph, and those separated by distance, such as the family depicted in the second zoom in paragraph, but all in their own way searching for connection in a world that was often too busy to offer it. So I've made this sort of definitive statement about family, that it's not just one fixed image. Some are close, some are distant, but ultimately there's a universal longing for connection. I think even in the second paragraph, There's something that's gone wrong, but ultimately these family members are longing to experience that sense of togetherness again. So there you have it, guys. Right, let's take a read of the whole thing. The house stood like a glowing beacon against the winter night, its golden light spilling through the frosted windows and onto the snow-laden ground. A soft haze of smoke curled from the chimney, dissolving into the starlit sky, whilst warm silhouettes flitted across the window panes, their movements lively and unguarded. Even from a distance, the sounds of laughter and muffled conversation carried through the crisp air, a stark contrast to the stillness outside. The towering Christmas tree, adorned with glimmers of silver and gold, was just visible through the glass, its peak crowned with a soft, steady glow. It was a portrait of warmth, joy, and togetherness, framed by the hush of a winter's evening. Through the frosted glass I watched them, a family wrapped in warmth and joy. 3 children wove through the living room, their laughter utterly infectious as shreds of wrapping paper lay strewn across the polished parquet floor, glowing softly in the flickering candlelight. The fire crackled in the hearth, sending golden embers swirling up the chimney, whilst shadows stretched and swayed across the walls. In his reclined chair the father grinned, his face alight with unwavering happiness, whilst the mother, with her auburn curls cascading over her shoulders, darted after the children, her laughter bright and unrestrained. The majestic Christmas tree reached towards the ceiling, its ornaments catching the light like scattered jewels, whilst the star at its peak gleamed with a steady otherworldly glow. The scene before me was one of pure, unfiltered joy, so full, so complete, that it seemed to hum with life. It was time to move on. I've just noticed, guys, it says Beyonce. Always proofread your work, guys. Clearly that's meant to say beyond. No offence to Beyonce fans out there. Beyond the next frost-laced window, the scene was starkly different. The same golden light poured from the lamps, but it did little to chase away the heavy stillness in the air. A boy sat slumped at the far end of the sofa, absently scrolling through his phone. His face was bathed in the cool glow of the screen. Across from him, a woman sipped from a mug, her gaze distant, lost in thoughts that no one asked about. At the dining table, a man flipped through the pages of a newspaper. His jaw was tight, his presence more obligation than choice. The Christmas tree stood solemnly in the corner, its decorations sparse, its lights blinking mechanically as if forced into festivity. There were no remnants of torn wrapping paper, no echoes of laughter, no sign that the day was different from any other. The silence between them was not peaceful. It was heavy, an unspoken understanding that whatever had once bound them together had long since begun to fray. It was time to move on. Outside, the world moved on, indifferent to the lives unfolding behind closed doors. People walked the streets, some alone, others in pairs or groups, their footsteps creating a rhythmic pulse against the quiet night. Families bundled in scarves and coats drifted past Christmas window displays, their laughter and conversation rising above the murmur of the city. In contrast, some walked in silence, shoulders hunched, eyes cast downwards, unaware of the joy in the shops, or the lights shining above. The Christmas lights seemed to illuminate more than just the street. They cast fleeting glimpses of warmth and togetherness in windows, but also revealed gaps in others' lives, where families sat apart, disconnected by invisible walls. The streets told a story of families in all of their forms, those bound by love and those separated by distance, but all in their own way, searching for connection in a world that was often too busy to offer it.
And there you have it, guys. If for some miraculous reason you managed to survive all the way until the very end, please do let me know in the comments below. And until next time, bye bye.